today. Thank you, Olivia, so much for your time to help us with this. Just a quick recap. As you know, we a few months ago decided that ORTOC has been kind of looking at this nifty criteria and how it applies to Kribari for over and under triage. Kribari, as you know, measures cases, but doesn't really measure acuity that well. And so this was something that the Eastern region went ahead and trialed to see if they could get a little better, what do I want to say, a little more accurate analysis of their over and under triage by taking into the effect the, Kribari deals totally with diagnoses. This deals with interventions. What do we have to do? And applying those interventions, especially for our level 3 standpoint, we may transfer somebody out and we don't know what all they have wrong with them. Because if we're efficiently getting them out, they could have a spleen lac we have no idea about. Since we can only chart what we can see and what we have diagnosed, this leads to very low, looks like terribly over triaged patients. We could fly out a patient who's got an ISS of 2, and it looks like, holy smokes, you got helicopters fly in for a 2. Nifty kind of takes and kind of covers some of that gap with us. And the criteria that East region used was the original Nifty criteria. We have modified it to fit us a little bit better. So I'm going to let Olivia kind of take it from there, and she can talk about the differences between the two. And then she's got a worksheet for us. She has agreed to do our data for us, to collate it, to help us with those numbers. And so I'm going to let her take it away from there. So go right ahead there, Miss Olivia. It's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Diane. I appreciate it. So I can hop in straight into this worksheet. I think you pretty much covered all the intro stuff I was going to talk about. Be sure I can share this. Oh. Can y'all see my Excel sheet?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay. This is the first time I've shared on Teams before, so I wasn't sure. So as Diane said, this really gives us the ability to add more context when we're looking at over-under triage as opposed to just ISS. But the criteria do end up being a little more involved. It's not like you can just look at your 2 fields of what the activation level was and what the ISS was. So I originally developed this worksheet when we were doing this within our region up with knots. But it does give you the ability to track your patients as they come in and evaluate them for the Nifty criteria. So I pretty much just took the one that we used, but I adapted it and added in the criteria that you were going to use for the level 3s. So criteria that are more appropriate to you guys and how you guys operate. And this makes it pretty easy. Everything self-calculates. So I'll just go through and do some examples so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. So it is going to want you to put in a patient ID. So put in some random numbers. Until you get everything filled in, it's going to give you this little incomplete flag at the end to let you know that you fill everything in. So let's say we have a patient who was your highest activation level. Let's say they were a transfer out, so they came in and you transferred them straight to like a level 1. So this is going to calculate for you. You're basically just filling out all the criteria, and it's going to automatically look at that and say, yes, this was a Nifty positive patient. And it's going to tell you that that was appropriate. This patient had the highest activation level, but based on the fact that they were transferred to a higher level of care, it's going to assume that they were A severely injured patient who needed trauma intervention, so it's going to say that's appropriate. So let's say now we have another patient who is a highest activation level, but they didn't meet any of these criteria. So now that's going to tell you this patient was not NIFTY positive, so they did not have a need for trauma intervention, yet they were your highest activation level. So now that's going to tell you it was over triaged. So now let's say we have a patient who was not your highest activation level, and this one didn't meet any of these criteria. So that one is going to be appropriate as well, because based on this criteria, they didn't have an immediate need for trauma intervention. They weren't the highest activation level, so that would be appropriate. And then kind of the last example is, say this person came in, got blood when they came in. So then this one would be NIFTY positive. It's going to flag as under triage. So the idea with this is you would just kind of maintain this day to day. And we developed this through some conversations with some people from the University of Tennessee who had kind of first started implementing this in their program. So this allows you to kind of stay on top of assessing these patients as they come in. And the nice thing about this is as you're putting everything in on this part, you can hop over to the summary page and it creates a summary for you. So if you had more patients in here who met more criteria, it would break down how many meet each of these criteria, and some I do still have to update for somebody else's criteria. But it will give you a summary of your over and under triage according to NIFTY. And then if you really wanted to, you could also add in your Cribari numbers. So these are editable. So if you wanted to compare, you could put in some random numbers there. If you wanted to compare, you can do that. So that's just a really quick overview. I mean, there's directions in here that y'all can look at if you need some reference. We do have one trauma center in the Knott's region who has implemented this, and it's level 2, so they're using the other version. But they have implemented it day to day to stay on top of this, and they've really liked it. So I'm going to stop sharing if I can. Oh, wait, no. I got my screen back. I wanted to be able to see everyone. So kind of the next steps that I was thinking with this, I would like to get a couple trauma centers who would want to pilot using this tool. I did build this out myself with a bunch of Excel formulas, and I'm a human who can make mistakes, so I would want some pilots just to be sure all the kinks are worked out, and make sure you feel like it is accurately reflecting the needs of a level 3 trauma center. But kind of what I was thinking, if we want to do a larger project with this, and I'm not totally attached to this idea, so whatever y'all think is appropriate. But I was kind of thinking once we pilot this with a couple level 3s, we could set a implementation time frame where we want to implement it with everyone who wants to participate, and maybe like 6 months, a year, something like that, where we implement this for all patients. So all patients would go into this, and then at the end of that time frame, we could look at just these numbers for data analysis and probably collect data on the Cribari as well so that we can compare the two. But if we're just using these raw numbers as opposed to like collecting actual patient like line by line data, you wouldn't need to worry about IRBs and all that craziness. So that could be a nice little quality project for y'all to look at and try to develop a tool like this that's appropriate for level 3s. And it does seem like that's a big hole that needs to be filled, because some people have started looking more and more at using NIFTY as opposed to the Krabari assessment, but it is limited currently in that it doesn't fully address y'all's needs, which is an important area to be looking at. So does anybody have any questions? I know that was like a really quick overview, but I did want to try to get you like a practical implementation idea of how this would look in practice.
Olivia, this is Diane. Thank you for that. That looks very, very good. But I do have one question on the NIFTY on the triage worksheet. It's just to ask about highest activation levels, but when we look at Krabari, it's looking at all activation levels. If we just do like some of these, and I'm speaking just from my facility, maybe everybody else is different, but I mean, my ratio of highest level activations to other activations, I mean, I have almost a 3-4 to 1 of the lower level, but we still can have some significantly injured patients in that. It just so happens they happen to be stable. So I guess I'm wondering, how does that tie in? Because like if we just go off the highest level, we're gonna, like, some of those may have been a level 2 for us, but to say, is this a highest level, we're gonna say no. They may have been transferred, or they may have been this stuff, and that's gonna really make us look, I mean, really bad.
Agree, Diane. We're this is Jenny Bratsky. We're like, we have a lot of head injuries. Like, where do those patients fit into that?
Would they end up meeting any of these criteria, or would those patients kind of fall out?
I'm thinking about it.
Maybe the ED to ICU, Jenny, or a transfer.
What about, patients who don't get, they are getting FFP or other reversal agents instead of just packed red blood cells? I don't know. We have so many old people on anticoagulation. I'm assuming the rest of you have those too.
That's a good question. Good point.
This is Carly Coleman. I have clarification. So on the data input, would we only be putting our highest level activations, or would we be using all patients?
No, this would be all patients. So you would denote the highest activation level in this column. You would say either yes or no.
Okay.
And then kind of to touch on Diane's point a bit, part of this is it could be edited to get more granular and actually break out each activation level. When we were doing this, we were looking at across trauma centers, and right now we're working on a larger state project, so it's across the whole state. And since those activation levels aren't consistent, looking at just the highest level and any other level helps us standardize and allow us to compare a little bit better for data analysis. If we started looking at granular activation levels, it would get really difficult to compare because everyone's different. But I agree, there is definitely value in looking at that. I'd have to think through it a little bit more if we could get it a little more granular for like this kind of project, but I could absolutely modify this spreadsheet to allow people to get more granular within your own institution, because I agree, I do think there would be value in that.
I mean, this is Diane again. My concern is that we're going to have a very high under triage rate because we may have activated the team, but it wasn't at the highest level. But like I said, they're still going to click. So they're going to be nifty positive with it saying no a lot. And that may give a false impression of you people are going to wonder what in the world we are doing, you know? So I don't want to create that kind of issue where it looks bad, but it really isn't as bad as we do. Now, I applied these just because I would never bring this to you guys if I didn't try it on my own stuff first. It is amazing what it does. For the first quarter of my data this year, I applied this criteria, but I included it for both of our activations, level 1s and level 2s. And with Kribari, because we had a terrible March, I don't know if it was terrible March or people were just lucky. They didn't get hurt that bad. You know, we had a lot of activations, but they didn't get hurt that bad. So it made our over triage rate look really bad. But our Kribari in the first quarter was 72%. With this, it is 52. So it dropped it 20% by applying these criteria. And then our under triage went from 6.2% to just 3%. So it is significant. I think we're on the right page as far as the parameters we want to apply to it. I just think we have to make sure that we're catching, you know, when we activate. I don't know exactly how to do it either, Olivia. I'm kind of stuck with you. I'm going to let you think a little. You got a better thinker on you than I do. But somehow we need to capture this. And we may have to play with, you know, a couple months worth of data and see what it looks like. And then say, oh, yeah, this is ugly. This is not, we're not capturing it correctly. So.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, there is value in collecting the data. And if we find that maybe did you say under triage or over triage?
It's our under triage rate is going to look really high on this, as it is right now.
So if it seems really high and we don't feel like that's appropriate, there's still value in finding that disconnect. You know, we're at least finding some direction there. And I mean, this isn't a hard and fast tool right now. It's very new. It's not like it's something that's set in stone that we have to abide by. So.
Yeah, I imagine this will evolve as we collect data and punch numbers in.
Definitely.
I think you might have a high over triage rate too. You don't think so?
Yeah, I think you're going to have that too.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think it'll be to the degree Kribari is alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kribari kind of our stuff's pretty skewed on Kribari. I feel like the percentages are, you know, when you say them to someone in a group of people, they're like, what? And we, you know, speak to why they are the way they are. So I think with this, we may narrow that gap a little, but they're still going to be, I think though for a level 3, we're always going to have to speak to why we over triage because of lack of resources and things like that. But I do think this would be really nice to compare for maybe a quarter's worth, you know, using this and then do your Kribari as well, just to kind of see, is it narrowing that gap or are we just kind of in the same bucket of huge percentages?
And when we implemented this within our region, and we didn't implement this with any level 3. So our mileage may vary. But with the level 1s and 2s that we looked at, we actually went through and all the patients that were still flagging as over and under triage, we actually went in and looked them up to see if we thought that assessment was appropriate. And for the most part, we felt like it was. So on the level 1 and 2 side, we definitely felt like that was pretty helpful. So that's something that we could do with this as well. And, you know, with getting your numbers more narrow, it gives you fewer patients that you would have to look up and see if you think that's appropriate. But, and Diane,
this is Julie from UH Portage.
Go ahead, Julie.
When we're looking at a project like this, is it not the purpose? Triage is the front end part of when the patient comes in. And when I look at, whether I look at NIFTY or I look at Kribari, my fallouts are those same height falls with no kind of alteration in mentation that end up with a high ISS that for a level 3, I'm never going to activate a full team for. So how does this extrapolate back to make sure that we're getting the patient the proper care at the front end, whether it's Kribari or NIFTY?
Well, the beauty of that patient, I know exactly what you're talking about because we all have that patient, that person who same level fall, or GCS is baseline, or not enough to make a huge difference, and they're on that anticoagulant and they pop that bleed. Well, there's 16 right there. There's an ISS 16, just that quick. And then God forbid, they bunged up their nose or broke a wrist when they did it too, or something else. And that patient though is going to be, it's going to look bad on a Kribari grid, but it's going to be considered NIFTY positive on this grid, because most of us level 3s, I know Julie, you're one, and we're going to transfer that patient. So we're going to hit that patient right there. And Jennifer, Jen, it's going to be, you're probably going to put that patient in your ICU. So that patient's going to be NIFTY positive for you too. So suddenly what looks like a total under triage ends up being okay because of hitting those metrics. Does that make sense?
Sorry.
I still don't understand though that, I analyze all those, and I'm sure you do, Diane, as well. It doesn't change the front end process at all, which I thought that was the purpose of the Kribari, was to look at, did you miss an activation? Did you not hit your criteria? Is there criteria you can change in your activation so that you're capturing these patients on the front end? And when I do my monthly analysis, my over triage would be 200% if I tried to capture all these patients, because there's not a commonality there.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, most of these aren't even on an anticoagulant. They're just old.
Right.
Is there thought to use this? Like, I know when we do ours, we look at the Kribari just exactly how it states it, Orange Books, to do the Kribari, but then we also use the Kribari stuff using institutional criteria. So we do like their criteria and then our institutional alert criteria, and then we compare those rates to kind of help. Okay, yeah, it's saying these are all over triaged. However, it didn't meet, or under triaged, but it didn't meet our institutional alert criteria. So it's never going to capture those ones like we're talking about, Julie. Is there a way to use this NIFTY to kind of look at that? Like, yes, it's saying we've under triaged all of those, but can we use this with our institutional parameters as well to see, are we doing something wrong, or are we following our institution?
And I think that's what most of us are going to find. You have the occasional fallout where somebody didn't activate appropriately, but I guess just on a very fundamental level, I feel like I can capture on the backside that we did everything appropriately. We reviewed our criteria. We found no commonality to change our criteria. I get that this may reinforce that even more, that we did triage these patients appropriately. We're not going to change necessarily how we're activating on the front end, no matter what we're doing here. I don't think. I just don't get the purpose of adding one more thing to do to show what we already know.
Well, I think the biggest purpose of this is, you're right, our over triage rate sometimes is like astronomical, even though we know that we have patients that are higher acuity, or end up so once we get our reports back, on how that patient did. And it truly was a significantly injured patient, but at the time we cared for them and did what we do as a level 3, we couldn't make that stick on a Krabari grid, because we can only chart what we see, and that's the thing. This gives us an intervention mode that we don't have with Krabari. Krabari is just simply injury. And I think it just defines a little better that, you know, we are efficient in taking care of these patients, and that every patient that is over triaged on a Krabari is not over triaged on a NIFTY scale. Would you say that's true, Olivia?
Yeah, and I mean, there will still be some that kind of fall through the cracks, but it does narrow. And when we were looking through our patients, when we did this regionally, we also found quite a few that were like those same level falls. And that may be another thing to try to figure out, another way to address. But at least this does provide some additional context and does at least narrow the gaps a little bit.
Hello.
Hi.
What's
Happy Friday.
Happy, yay!
Hey, Jess just sent me an email and she said, can you send me a
Were there any other questions or thoughts or anything?
Hi, this is Cindy. I was just wondering, are we going to, you know, if people decide to do this, are you going to try and put it into some type of a research project or publish it, or, you know, anything in that matter?
So that's kind of up to you guys. I'm not sure if this was touched on the last time y'all talked about this, but so ORTalk is planning on doing like a full research project along with the publication with looking at this across the whole state. I think initially we would probably want to start with just kind of a quality project to get some feelers out on how this would work with level 3s. I do think eventually, though, this would be a really great publication, and I'd be happy to continue helping with that because this is a gap, and there is a lot of value in ensuring that this kind of thing does have value for level 3s.
Well, yeah, I'm bringing it up. If we want to do that, you know, we kind of need to start doing it now the right way. If we want to have the data accurate, you know, if we want to look at this as a level 3. Otherwise, you know, I'm kind of on board with it's just a lot of extra work right now if we aren't going to see any benefits from it. But, you know, if we would think about doing something like that as a group, you know, I'm just kind of throwing some of those questions out there for discussion.
I'm glad you asked that, because I wanted to ask this group, because I know it's on our whole group meeting agenda, or we got a lot of documents on it, because we were asked within our hospital network from our level 2 facility if we wanted to participate in, I'm assuming, the ORTalk project for this. And I knew we had talked about this as a level 3 group, so I wanted to just gauge, are all of you going to participate in the statewide one? Or are we just going to do like the level 3 project? I just wanted to see what the other level 3s in the state were going to be doing regarding the larger ORTalk one.
This is Diane again. I think that right now that was one of the tasks that came out of ORTalk, was to see in the regions who all wants to participate of 1, 2s, and 3s. So I don't know if we have the answer yet specific to that, because we each were assigned a region to try to figure out, are you going to participate in that or not, or, you know, that kind of thing. But do you have, I'm interested too of other people. If we do have people who are doing it for the level 1s, or doing it as part of ORTalk, then we already have part of our data collected already anyway, so.
I had just seen the June 30th, I thought somewhere, as they needed an answer. So I know we won't meet before then. And I wanted to, you know, be able to give our facility a response. I think the larger ORTOC one, I'm not sure how much benefit, you know, some of the criteria will hit, but some of them are not relevant for a level 3. So I was just curious. If we're all going to do it, that's fine. If not, I wanted to fairly be consistent with this group.
So just to give a little bit of context on the ORTOC one, so we're not collecting transfer as like a nifty criteria, but we are collecting that information, and that is one of our research questions in that project. So we are going to be comparing patients who were transferred out or versus not. So that will be incorporated in some regard in the project. We won't be looking exclusively at level 3s because that could include, you know, level 2s being transferred to level 1s as well. But from my perspective with ORTOC, there would be value to that project to you guys participating. I think you would be providing important data for that project.
I can say this is Jenny. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do. I'm happy to participate if the level 3s do it, you know. But a lot of transition here for us, so I don't know. We look at this monthly we review every one of these patients clinically already monthly. I'm sure you guys do too. I don't know. A lot happening down here. Just trying to get through. But I gotta get a new trauma medical director first. So.
This is Marianne. The ORTOC I haven't really heard about or have seen emails on, so I'm okay with going forward with the level 3. So, you know, whatever we do here. I haven't seen the other thing at all. Maybe I'm missing something.
Well, the biggest thing, Marion, is that like one of the parameters for them, they don't have transfer in theirs. They have ED to IR. Well, for the vast majority of level 3s, we don't have IR. So really it's a mute metric for us. Doesn't really capture, for us, getting someone from our rural facilities to a tertiary facility, that's the big deal. And so that's why we made the modified version here for us, which is fits a little better for us as far as this is just like having kids. You know, nobody wants to talk to you till you're in the bathroom, okay? Nobody wants to call me until we're in a meeting. So trauma comes in, it's like, oh yeah, whatever, do it right now. But the big thing is that this one definitely fits a little bit more like a glove to us. And I think the data will be a little bit more meaningful to us. I do think there is value, like Olivia said, to us putting our data into the big one as well. But this one, I think, really, I think can help that issue that we've tried to solve with ISS and feedback from the bigger facilities as far as how can you end up transferring out by helicopter that person with an ISS of 2 and say you are not over triaging like to the wazoo. So I think that's for a surveyor, and we've all been there with surveyors when they look at those charts and they think, you know, what, and you have to explain, you know, that, well, they ended up having this and this and this and this. I just didn't know it at the time that the patient was with us. So. Any other comments on this?
I'm not sure exactly what kind of timeline y'all would want to proceed on, but if anyone wants to be kind of like a beta tester on this, you can let me know and maybe do like a month or two of testing, implementing this to work out the kinks before rolling it out with everyone. And Diane, if you want me to hop on your next meeting with this group to kind of help with, study design and that kind of stuff, I'd be happy to do that.
That would be great as well. And you can certainly put me down for a beta tester because I can test a couple things for you. I can definitely do this, and then I've already done it at the next level of all of my team activations, so we can compare that too. So put me down for that. I'll be willing to do that. Is anybody else willing to kind of beta test this?
Diane, this is Sherry Johnson from Firelands. I'll do it.
Thank you, Sherry. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Diane, this is Alex. We were already talking about incorporating the Nifty into our under triage just for our monthly, so we'll jump on board too.
Perfect.
This is Carly Coleman. If you need another one from Grandview Medical Center, we can beta test as well.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you, Carly. All right. So I got Carly, myself, Alex.
If you need another one, Diane, I'll do it. I've actually never did Rabari or Nifty, so this might be good for me, I think.
Okay, we can help you out with that too. And if you run into where it's making your eyes cross, just let us know. Okay.
Okay.
Who is this? Who is this?
Marianne Langfried.
That's Marianne. Okay.
Judge, yeah.
And there was somebody else too. Who was it? Who am I missing?
This is Cindy.
Cindy. Okay.
I'm willing to help with it.
Okay. All right.
I would like us to see us do something research wise or in that fact. So if we can kind of keep our eyes and ears and brains open for that, I think that would be nice.
I can see it definitely heading that direction. I hate to put the cart before the horse, but certainly I just from what I did with my numbers, I think it certainly is worthy of sharing and publicizing. So, okay, good deal.
Yeah, and the only reason I say it the way I do is a lot of times when you're talking about research, if you start collecting some of the data and then you decide you want to do research, they don't want you including past stuff. So that's why I'm trying to be a little bit proactive about that we're thinking in that fashion. So.
Okay, good deal. All right, so I have for the pilots, I have Carly, myself, Alex, Marianne, Cindy. Anybody else? Okay, so that gives us 5, Olivia. So I think that's a good start.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I can email you kind of some information, like some points that maybe people can look out for as they're testing it. So I can send you more information on that and you can disseminate to them.
Yep, I'll do that. I'll get that out to these 5 then.
So I need to hop off before my next meeting at 10. Is there anything else that need from me before
we appreciate the time you gave us. Thank you so much. And we appreciate your willingness to help us with the data. So that's great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Alex, can you put back up the agenda so I can see what in the world we're talking about next?
I sure can.
I should have printed it out and had it in front of me, but of course that would have took some thinking on a Friday.
Yeah, that's not allowed on a Friday.
All right, rural education work group. Just to update you guys, the state is looking at basically the state of trauma education in Ohio. So we have a work group that's a branch out of the state trauma committee, and I'm chairing this one. We have 2 groups coming out of this because we had a big report come back from a research grant that basically talked about our education. So this rural group is we're looking at the education given to rural areas for nurses, physicians, and EMS. So basically we each took a region and we're kind of looking within that region of who does what. Within my region, I can tell you just talking to people, I especially honed in on the critical access hospitals. And, I said, how would you describe your trauma education program? Is it robust? Is it sparse? Is it somewhere in the middle? And the vast majority of them said that it was sparse. it sounds like the biggest problem that they have is getting their people to classes. Nobody wants to pay for travel, but they don't have the resources to have it there. So I can see where there's some opportunities to hopefully kind of help close some of these gaps. But all of them were very cordial. They would love to mandate TNCC. Most of the program manager, or excuse me, most of the ED directors would like to mandate TNCC, but they just can't because they can't get people to classes and that kind of thing. So it's something for it's neat that the state's looking at this and kind of deciding, you know, is there something at a state level we can do? So, all right, that's that. Downloading blood products into TQIP. Question was raised because some people were having problems with this when they had patients that received pack cells within the 4 hours, and you're putting them in the registry, popping them in there, and then you answer the yes to that and fill in those appropriate windows. When you go to upload that, it kicks that chart out. Has anybody else had problems with that? Okay, everybody, other people have been able to get it through. Is that what I'm taking? Okay, must have. Okay. All right. So it's something for us to look at. I think that TQIP is aware of this and that there was an issue. So it's something for us to kind of watch. If you do have an issue like that, let us know, and certainly work with TQIP with this too. It must be some little glitch somewhere. All right, next question. Who grades your solid organ injuries? Is it the radiologist or is it the trauma surgeons?
I think it's both. I think this has been a question.
0.5 and a 0.5.
We recently did a big spleen data review at UC, with mine included, of grading. My takeaway was it was both, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
At Firelands, we require the radiologist to do it, and the trauma guys might do it.
Okay.
So this is Carly from Grandview. If they go direct to the OR, we require the surgeon to put it in their op note. If they go to imaging, we require the radiologist to have it in their report.
Okay.
This is Shannon. So speaking for UH, we do request that the radiologist do the grading for us. But if for some reason we did not get a radiologist grade on that, we do use our trauma surgeons to fill in that gap.
With reviewing some of those spleens, we did see that sometimes the trauma surgeons don't give enough detail for the registrars to grade them as high as they really are. So that's something we did look at too.
Yeah, that's an ongoing problem.
Right.
I know a lot of places battle is getting your radiologist to put that number to it. All right, well, that's kind of interesting. And when the surgeons are doing it, are they doing it as a CT reading, they're looking at it, or are they doing it as a post-op?
Intra and post-op.
Intra, okay. All right. All right, thank you for that. Okay, next thing, meeting time, if we have a physical meeting. So, as far as the state goes, as of July 1st, we should have face-to-face meetings. There's the edict or whatever you want to call it extends only through June 30th. So when we're talking our August meeting, I think that we can talk about the fact, do we want to have physical meeting together somewhere? And a lot of this is going to depend on OSTNL too. I know that they have to find a place now where they want to meet, something that's convenient for everybody. And obviously we would meet that exact same place if there's physical meetings. However, we have changed our meeting time to 9 o'clock through all the virtual world. So that's my first question is, we always used to meet at 9:30 to kind of help those people who are traveling, give them so they don't have to get up at, like we say down up here, the butt crack of dawn, So do we want to adjust our meeting time if we go to physical meetings? What's everybody's thoughts on that?
I would say for myself, I travel far to get there, so I would request personally 9:30 again, because it seemed to me I just got there with like 15 minutes to spare. So
very good.
And this is Barb. I agree with the 9:30.
9:30, okay.
Is there gonna be an option for Zoom, or is it just going to be physical?
I don't know at this point yet, because I don't know where it's going to be and if that capability would be there. There never was where we met before. Now, I guess the thought is if we meet somewhere else where there is that capability, and depending too on what OSTNL decides as far as virtual meetings too, if they're going to continue them, not continue them, have them at certain times. So I don't know, maybe Alex can help us a little bit with that, but.
Yeah, I joined right when I joined, I've only been doing this for 2 years, but there was only one meeting that I actually went to, and I honestly, was that in Columbus? Is that where they were held prior? Because it's been a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's a 3.5 hour drive for me.
Yeah.
So this is Alex. I'm throwing this on the agenda so we can talk about it today, because I don't have tons of content anyway. So it's a good thing to talk about because it's starting to come up even with AOTR. But just to kind of give some background, probably maybe 4 or 5 months before we did the total stay at home with COVID, the state had already informed us that they would no longer be able to support our meeting space. They were still looking into it, but it was looking like it was going to be a no. And then with COVID, it just kind of disappeared because we didn't really need the option anymore. So I'm assuming, and I can check with Eric and Diane, I don't know if you know, but they were saying technically because we're not an official state group, unlike the PI committee and the trauma committee, we're technically not an official group under the state. So they aren't required to house us. It's been a courtesy this entire time. So because of space, and then of course now with COVID, I think that's really diminished significantly. We'll touch base again just to make sure, but we were already in the process of starting to look for other locations. And that was a struggle as well, because you want to find something central. And then it's a decision of where do you house the number of people that we have. Ideally, you want to also coordinate with AOTR, and their group is much bigger than ours. I know COTS was definitely our number one option. However, to house AOTR and OSTNL would not be able to happen because of the volume of participants. So I think that's something we'll probably have to still continue to work through. I personally would like to continue in-person meetings, but I don't know if we have to have them every single meeting. So the state, for ENA, their state committee, they meet twice a year. They have bi-monthly meetings as well, but their in-person meetings are only twice a year, and then they still continue their virtual option throughout. And especially I think there was always hesitancy of going virtual just because of participation, but there was always that that question of some people do, like Marianne said, drive 3-4 hours just to get to this meeting. And doing it maybe once a year isn't that bad, but doing it 6 times a year definitely is a problem. So I think, especially since we aren't held to this, all of the standards of the state, I think keeping the virtual option is something that I would like to do. If we do in person, doing a hybrid is a challenge, so that would be something we would have to work on as far as wherever we're housed at in person, making sure that the people that are online can hear. And that may be something too, just as OSTNL group, we may just purchase some equipment or some type of speaker or something that could help with that. We can work through that. That won't be an issue. So I think the biggest thing is figuring out location. Also something that the ENA state group does, they rotate locations. So one meeting, it might be up towards Akron, one meeting might be towards Cincinnati. So even if you do participate, maybe that's just where it's at that point in time. You can go to that one that's closer to you. So we can talk through a couple of those different things. So yeah, that just kind of doesn't really give you a whole lot of answers, but kind of the space that we're at right now and just seeing what we're going to do moving forward. But I definitely would like to do everything possible to keep the virtual option, because our participation is definitely much higher with the online option because people can just easily access it. But I do know a lot of people feel strongly about the in-person, and I don't think it'll diminish our in-person attendance. The people that typically come will probably still come if they're able to, and if they're not, then at least they won't miss the meeting. So that's kind of all I have. I don't know if anyone has any suggestions or any ideas right now before we move forward with the OSTNL piece.
Hi, Alex. This is Amy Shopper at Soin. I came from Texas and was in the trauma system there prior to moving to Ohio. And that's what we did. We actually had our meetings. We didn't have a virtual option. There was no need for that at that time, but we did rotate sites. So it did make our participation a lot easier for folks that maybe couldn't, have the funds to travel with Texas being such a big state. But it did work very well. We scheduled all of those meetings usually the year prior, so everybody knew exactly where they were going. So it was very helpful, and it was successful for us, if that's helpful for this group.
Yeah, that helps for sure. So we can, I put it on the agenda so we can continue talking about it at the OSTNL meeting. So I know you've only got a couple minutes left, Diane.
Yeah.
You can finish up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something to decide, there's perks and downsides to each, physical meetings are hard to get to that, but the networking is so supreme that it's, for a lot of people, it's worth the mileage. On the other hand, virtual is, you can catch it anywhere. So it is a great topic we need to discuss. And hopefully, knock on wood, it'll be something that our next meeting will be impacted by it. So, all right, I want to get Carly in just to give a little update on education.
Hey everyone. So I am going to share this for the big meeting as well, but I do want to show real quick our next 4 education session breakouts. So we're going to be talking about the electronic trauma documentation. So if anybody is interested, these will be the next, oops, sorry, my screen just flipped. There, can everybody see the electronic documentation now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So I put the dates here. These are kind of tentative dates just based on the every other month educational sessions that we have listed. So it'll take us through the first month of next year. If we do them that way, we may be able to combine some or roll them into our big OSTNL meeting, but right now we're keeping them on the education dates. So if you have experience with this, I know we've asked, a couple times for volunteers, but we have people who are going to do these sessions, but if you could offer your experiences or some takeaways from any of these sections, please let me know if there's a portion of this that you feel passionate about or really feel like you need to let other people know to help with their rollout or possible implementation of this. I would really appreciate it. So please let me know if you want to help with this or have any tidbits you want to add. And that's kind of where we're going right now with education until the new book comes out. Then we'll also add chapter discussions in as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Carly. That sounds great. So, all right. Does anybody have a quick question before we go to the main meeting? Any quick question for open forum?
I don't have a question, but I did want to just update on the level 3 spreadsheet that we were working on from the last meeting. There was a Microsoft Forms survey that was sent out. I did just put it back in the chat if you have access to the chat. But after our OSTNL meeting, I'll send it out. The link again for those that haven't. We have 9 participants so far, and I'll just pull up the spreadsheet really quick. If we go over, that's okay. I'll tell the president to hold
Yeah,
it.
you keep the president off our butt, okay?
So just really quick, we got 9 participants so far, and even just looking at it just really quickly here, it's really interesting to see how much we vary. I mean, you can see right here, our trauma registry, we're going from 1,800 to 525. Huge differences, highest level activations, number of trauma patients that go to the OR. And I'll be sending this out to everybody. So don't, I know it's really small right now.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can make that a little bigger. But you can just really see how much we vary from center to center. And I think this will really be helpful. So just, if you haven't done the survey yet, definitely get in there, get into the link and fill it out. It takes about, the average time so far is about 15 to 20 minutes to fill it out, just depending on, if you have to look things up and so on. There is one question I think was worded really poorly, and I don't remember which one it is, but I will try and get in there and fix that, because I noticed the answers were kind of off, and I think it was just because the question was worded poorly. So I'll fix that. But definitely, I think this will be really helpful. So if you can fill it out, go ahead and do so.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, guys, as usual, you are such a great group. You're my favorite meeting of all time. So thank you so much for your participation and everything, and your willingness to shoulder a little extra work to see where we can improve things and improve them for everybody. So thank you so much. Hopefully see some people here in August. That would be fantastic. So, all right, Alex, it is yours.
All right. Let me make sure. I'm not muted. Good. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. Flip over to this other screen here. Okay. Can you guys see the PowerPoint? Okay. And I'm just gonna look and see where we are at with how many people are in and see if we need to hang out for a second so people can still get in. I know a lot of people are on vacation, so I think we're going to have a smaller meeting in general. And I don't have tons and tons of stuff on the agenda anyway, so hopefully we'll be able to give you guys back some time at the end of this meeting and it won't be too prolonged. All right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. So of course I'm Alex Carpenter. Oh, there's Gertrude. I'm Alex Carpenter and I'm president of OSTNL. Is there any new members? Do we have anyone that's new to OSTNL? I know I've sent a couple invites to some individuals that have contacted me over the last month or so. So I'm not sure if anyone that's currently on is new to the group. that would like to introduce themselves?
I can go first. My name's Michelle Taylor, and I'm with Lima Memorial Hospital, and I am new to being a trauma program manager here.
All right, welcome. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So we're going to jump right into it. And first we're going to do a roll call, and then we'll do quorum for our paid members. So I don't think we'll have much to vote on, but there may be one or two things. So just so we can make sure we do have quorum moving forward. So I'm just going to go through the list and call out names. And as I call your name, if you are able to turn on your video just so everybody knows what you look like, do that and just introduce yourself really quick. So first off, I have Shannon Swader. All right, Sherry Johnson.
I'm here at Fireland.
All right.
It's
Andrea
Shannon,
Light.
sorry.
Oh, shit, that's okay. All right. Andrea Light.
Hi, I'm here.
All right. Amanda Applin. And you can intro your facility as well, just so people know.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay. Christy Clark.
A little adult level 1.
Oh. Hi, I'm here.
About children.
Okay. All right. So yeah, for this roll call, just to clarify, because we'll just do a quick quorum call, but this call will just be what facility you're at in your role. Carly Coleman.
Hey everyone, Carly Coleman, Trauma Program Manager, Level 3, Dayton, Ohio, Grandview.
Danielle Rossler.
Hi, I'm here. I'm Danielle Rossler. I'm the Trauma Program Manager for the Northern Ohio Trauma System.
Anna Pace.
Hi, I'm Deanna Pace. I am the trauma coordinator for UH Geauga in a level 3.
Barb Felton. Oh, did I miss Elizabeth Garcia? Sorry. Elizabeth Garcia. I'm losing my mind. Looks like they're not. Okay, Barb.
Yeah, Barb Felton, Level 3, Marietta Memorial Hospital. I'm the Trauma Program Manager.
Lynn.
Trauma Program Manager, Cincinnati Children's, Level 1 Peds.
Claire.
PI Coordinator at Atrium.
Itzy.
Western Reserve Hospital. I'm the Trauma Coordinator, Level 3.
Okay. Jack Myers.
Hi, Jack Myers, UH Parma. We are Level 3.
Okay, welcome. Heidi.
Yeah, Heidi Jenkins, Mansfield, Level 2.
Okay. I had to extend my view. Joyce Himbaugh. Is Joyce on? Okay, move to Julie.
Julie Warholic, Trauma Program Manager, UH Portage in Ravenna, Ohio.
Okay. Kendra.
Kendra Hatledge, Trauma Program Manager, Suma Health, Akron City Hospital.
Okay. Tracy. Tracy Knox.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
I was trying to get it to turn on. Can you hear me? I'm
Yep.
Tracy. We have a provisional visit for Level 3, July 12th and 13th.
Yay.
I'm from Troy, Ohio.
All right. Marianne.
Marion Landfried, St. Joe's Warren Hospital, Level 3 Center.
Lynn Horton.
Hi, Lynn Horton from Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital, or Level 1 Peds Center.
Okay. And Michelle already jumped on. So Cynthia Nagel.
Hi, I'm Cindy Nagel with Ohio State East Hospital.
Noreen.
Hi, Noreen, level 3, Southwest General.
Okay. Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Owens, level 3 Mercy Regional Medical Center in Lorain, Ohio.
And Sandy.
Hi, Sandy Crossley. I'm UH Cleveland Medical Center. We're in adult level 1.
Awesome. Amy. Amy Schobert.
Hey, sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. This is Amy Shopperth. I am trauma program manager at Soin Medical Center in Beaver Creek.
Okay. And Diane.
Hi, Diane Simon, program manager at ProMedica Defiance, level 3.
Jennifer Snyder.
Jenny put in the chat. She does not have a mic today, but
Okay.
she is PM at Mercy Health St. Rita's, level 2, adult only.
Awesome. Welcome. Bernie.
Hi, Bernadette Schmigelski at Fairview Hospital, level 2.
Robin.
Hello, PI coordinator at Cleveland Clinic, Akron General.
And Vic.
Hi, good morning. Vic Raymeyer. I'm the PI coordinator at Central Ohio Trauma System.
All right. All right. Is there anyone else? I know there's a couple numbers at the top, and I won't go through all of them in case they're duplicates, but is there anyone that's on the phone or that I didn't call out that wants to jump on and intro themselves really quick before we go to roll call?
Hey, good morning. It's Melody Campbell from Kettering Medical Center, level 2.
Welcome. All right. Anyone else? Okay, we will go ahead and kind of, it's a little repetitive, but it's kind of serves a different purpose. But we will jump to member roll call really quick so I can make sure that we have a quorum. And if I don't have you listed, just either email me or put it in the chat if you've paid dues. It's been a crazy last couple of weeks, I think, for everybody. So if you're not on here, just send me a quick message so we can get you updated. So we'll start with Akron Children's, and you can just say present, or I guess you won't say if you're not. So Akron Children's. Atrium is here. Altman Hospital. Bethesda North. Blanchard Valley. Cincinnati Children's.
Here.
Cleveland Clinic Fairview.
Here.
Cleveland Clinic Hillcrest. Cleveland Clinic Mercy.
Here.
Dayton Children's. Firelands.
We're here.
Genesis. Kettering Network Grandview Medical Center.
Present.
Kettering Network Fort Hamilton.
I'm here.
Kettering Medical Center.
Present. I was present in April too.
Yeah, so was I. This is Christy.
I think sometimes when I add columns, the check marks shift. Lima Memorial.
Hi, this is Michelle Taylor. I had introduced myself at the beginning. I'm new to being a trauma program manager, and we are a level 2 facility.
Okay, great, welcome. Marietta.
I'm here and I was in the last meeting also.
Mercy Health St. Elizabeth. Mercy Health St. Joseph.
I'm here.
Mercy Health St. Rita's.
Jenny's on.
Okay. Metro Health Medical Center. Mount
here.
Carmel. Oh, here? Okay.
Yep.
Mount Carmel East.
Here, and I was in April too.
Nationwide Children's. Ohio Health Mansfield. Oh, did somebody?
I'm here.
For Ohio Health.
Yep.
ProMedica Defiance.
I'm here.
Yep. ProMedica Toledo. UC Health Westchester. I know Jenny was, well, she's not here now, so I think she did have to step off. St. Luke's Hospital. Summa Health.
Here.
UH Cleveland Medical Center.
It's Sandy, I'm here.
Right. UH Elyria.
This is Shannon. I'll sign in for you, Elyria.
Okay. UH Geauga.
Geauga, I'm here.
UH Portage.
Julie's here.
Okay. UH Rainbow Babies and Children's.
This is Lynn. I'm here.
University of Cincinnati. I don't think Jenny's on. University of Toledo. Western Reserve.
This is Itzy, present.
And COTS.
Yep, we're here.
On and Knots.
We're here, and I was also here in April.
Okay. All right, so just from looking at this, I believe we for sure have quorum. So if we need to vote on anything, we are good to go. All right, so as far as minutes, I'm going to pull up the minutes. We had some tech issues, so we couldn't get those minutes out to you ahead of time, but I will definitely send those out for the meeting. So I'm just gonna pull them up really quick so people just can kind of look through them and then have a motion for approval. Just gonna pull this over onto the screen. I'll just take a couple seconds and then scroll through. Almost. Try not to go too fast, but not go too slow for you guys either. Okay, do we have a motion to approve, or do we have any motions to make any changes or edits?
I motion to approve. I second. This is Melody.
Okay, and who did the motion?
Danielle.
All right, thanks Danielle, thanks Melody. All right, so we will approve the minutes and move forward. All right, so next up, we have Treasury report. I'm not sure if Kristen is on. I know she was really crazy this week. So if Kristen's not on, we will bypass the treasury report and move forward because I don't think I have the most recent copy to give either. So voting members, if you remember the last meetings, we were at, I think, like a 20-30% paid membership rate for OSTNL, and that has increased significantly. So we are at 40 out of our 58 centers that we have listed as trauma centers or up and coming trauma centers have paid dues for OSTNL. So it's really, really exciting. Thank you guys so much. That'll really help us with kind of the different projects that we're trying to do and paying for our electronic needs and meetings and so on. So we're at 69%. Again, if you want to take a quick look at this list, if you don't see your name, it may be still that your payment is in process and Kristen hasn't gotten it totally tied up yet. But if you don't see your name or your hospital and you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Kristen, and we will get you on the list and get you updated and get everything kind of tied up. Okay. All right, so let's move on to updates. Ohio TQIP Collaborative. I don't think Ann was here. So, and I don't know, I thought Ann might be on so she could say herself. But for those that don't know, Ann Moss will be retiring, I believe June, July. So I'm not sure if she's already gone and that's why she's not logged on.
June 30th.
June 30th? Okay. So Ann is retiring and it's going to be a huge loss for OSTNL and for the pediatric community, especially up in her area. She's the current program manager at Akron Children's, and Ann is such a has been a great mentor to myself and I know to lots of our members. She's been a huge force in trying to push this TQIP collaborative and PI projects across the state. So really, really sad to see her retire from the trauma field, but super excited that she's able to retire and spend time with her grandbabies and do the things that she enjoys to do. So hopefully we'll be able to, and we'll hop on at some point so we can kind of send our well wishes. But if not, just reach out to Ann and let her know how great she is. But as far as updates, all that I have, and anyone else that participates in the TQIP collaborative can kind of jump in if they need to. But I know they were planning another meeting. And looking at the Ohio TQIP Center participation, we were looking into how many centers were participating versus were not participating. And we have a pretty good presence, but there's definitely opportunity. So I know there's some work being done on trying to figure out what the barriers are with participating in the Ohio TQIP Collaborative. I know currently the level 3s are still technically not in the Ohio TQIP. We have our own collaborative and we do meet. However, we don't have an official Ohio TQIP report. And even when you sign up for TQIP, we're not listed as an option as far as collaboratives go. And that's just because TQIP is still trying to figure out essentially what to do with us and figure out how to meet our needs most effectively. But especially for the level 1 and level 2 trauma centers, participating in the collaborative, I think is helpful we get our TQIP reports and we're benchmarked across the country. But at least if we're benchmarking within the state, we can actually reach out to those people and kind of get an idea of, hey, what are you doing well? What are you not doing well? And how can you can help me improve? So as far as the work groups, Melody, I don't know if you have anything from VAP at all.
I do. Our VAP group, I think that Anne is still working on the doodle poll to see when folks can meet, but that was targeted to meet like in the next 2 weeks. We're moving ahead with this interactive tool that's to help standardize identification of ventilator-associated pneumonia. We got great response from folks who provided cases, and we're working on putting those cases into REDCap so that it can go out with the tool to see if the tool makes a difference. And so right now, yesterday I met with Mary Moran from SUMA to work on how those cases will be constructed in REDCap. And then we should be able to work with some other folks to get additional cases put in. So that work continues and moves on. But good news is that the spring report for Ohio TQIP, the VAP rate continues to go down. We still have some centers that remain above where we would like them to be. So there's still work to do.
Great. Anyone from the AKI committee that has anything to share? Okay. Since I'm on the COVID committee, just an update with the COVID survey. We did get a good amount of participation for our second survey. For those that don't know, our subcommittee did a big survey about a year ago once COVID hit pretty hard, just to take a look at how COVID has impacted our trauma programs across the state. Lots of focus has gone on into hospitals and its impact on hospitals overall, but not necessarily trauma programs. So we wanted to take a look at that. We did do an initial survey back in last April. We did do a poster presentation at TQIP on that, on those survey results. And now this is kind of a year in review follow-up survey just to get kind of a little bit more feedback. It's a much shorter survey, not as labor intensive. A lot of it is just, are you still doing some of the things you were doing? What have you stopped? How does your center look different? And just a couple different opinions on how the impact has affected your center. So we have gotten a lot of responses, but we would like more. We want as many as possible. We would like to do another poster presentation on this data, or pulling something together on this and utilizing it to where we can make it work for us. So this time around, we did utilize our trauma region representatives to help facilitate with participation in the surveys. If you haven't filled out a survey and you want to, just contact me directly. I can get you the survey, and I can take your results. Or if you sent it and you're not sure if the person you sent it to got it, again, send it to me directly and I will take care of it. But the regions are kind of being our middleman with this. So we would like as much participation as possible. So if you haven't filled it out, please do take a look at it and fill that out so we can have more data, so we can have more to work with. That's it for COVID. Isolated hip fractures. Anyone have anything new for that or anything they want to chime in on that's on that committee?
This is Julie. We last met, I believe, it was late March, and had to take a little hiatus because I had my review in May. We'll be meeting again within the next couple of weeks. The group has decided to take the data that we had and put together a best practices guideline based on the ACS guidelines for geriatric hip fractures. So that's the direction we've gone in, and we've just about incorporated best practices from multiple guidelines to put something together to put out there for everyone to use. That's it.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything else to add about the TQIP collaborative or any of the work groups? Any questions on any of that? All right, moving forward. ODPS updates. I know Eric said that he could not be on this month. He has a conflict, but the biggest thing is that there is a reporting extension for the Ohio Trauma Registry. There's still issues with the software vendors and being able to export data. So there have been some delays. So the first quarter trauma records are now due by July 31st instead of the normal June 30th. So if that is impacting your center, there has been an extension that's been put in place. All right, so liaison reports. We'll start with State Trauma Committee, Diane and Julie.
Julie, do you want me to take this since you weren't there?
That would help.
Okay. Julie decided she took the day off from State Trauma Committee in order to do a verification review, so we can see where her priorities are. But anyway, we did meet. It was one of the rare meetings we did not have a quorum. But basically what's coming out of the state committee is we're doing a rules review right now. We have to have that completed by November, and it's a long process, so we have to start early. So we're doing that. We are doing, Aaron Jennings is now the deputy of trauma. He attended his first state meeting, and I imagine I'll be working a lot more with him. But Rob is still very much in the thick of things, and that's good. And let's see, what else? The work groups coming out of the IEM education study for trauma education in the state are active. They're right now collecting data as far as touching base on how institutions and physicians and EMS agencies get their trauma education. So we're going to try to hopefully identify some gaps and see what can be done to kind of fill those gaps. So those are the primary things we are working on.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Diane, you just take the show over and go on to MFAS. Just do it all together.
MFAS board met in, what would that have been? April. They met. Really not a lot of new things. There is a new law that came out that lessens the restrictions on who can become a pre-hospital provider, and it is now allowing some felons to become providers. This was always a hard and fast rule that if you had a felony charge of any kind, you were not able to do that. And now the governor has signed into law that some felons can. However, so it's causing a lot of kind of angst within the department as far as vetting these people. So that's a big thing. The critical care committee is looking at helicopter usage and helicopter shopping. That's a big target there. And I think that's the primary thing. There is a couple laws that Colorado signed a law, and now there's one. It's proposed in Ohio that would basically, it allows legislators to decide what meds can be used in conscious sedation. So in Colorado, they signed a a law that in order for people to use ketamine in Colorado, it has to go through the legislature. It has to be approved through them and that type thing. And of course, obviously, we don't want legislators deciding medical treatments. So, there is, like I said, that one law that is proposed in Ohio. It's very similar. And the shocking thing is the legislator who proposed it is a physician. So we're just starting to see it. There's starting to be debates on it. And we'll see what happens with that. But there's a precedent being set that may have some untoward effects. So we'll watch that stuff. I think that's it.
All right. OIPP Barb. Barb's attachments were in the email I sent out last night. And I don't know, Barb, if you have anything that you wanted to just throw out there, is anything important. I know that statistic we had talked about was really impactful, and correct me if I get it wrong, but one of the falls report that's in the OIPP information, I found that 4 adults in Ohio die every day from a fall. And we know this information, but just kind of really putting it puts it into perspective. So I know that's something we're gonna try and kind of incorporate in some of our information that we pass out. So Barb, I'll let you kind of.
Yeah, that was the big thing that I was going to talk about. Yeah, I've even started. I took that information to like my Matter Balance classes and any of my trauma meetings that I've had. I've taken that to them, and it's just it was really shocking to me when I read it that 4 people die every day. There was one thing in the packet that I don't know if probably nobody's looked at it yet. There's a fall prevention symposium in August from OIPP. And there was a couple other conferences in there. One for in sexual violence, a conference that's actually on the 21st of this month. So, but other than that, I really didn't have anything. It's just that those numbers just really shocked me that it was that high.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you, Barb. Shannon, anything from STN? I know there was some information on the liaison report as well.
Yes, the STN report, is pretty sparse. There was not many updates on the site, except that the STN is forming a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and they are looking for volunteers. A deadline to apply for that is June 30th.
Okay.
And that's it.
Ohio Committee on Trauma. I don't think Tina is on. I don't know if anyone has anything that's on right now that they can share. I don't think we had updates either. Okay. Lynn, I don't believe there was anything from PTS that you had.
No, just the yearly conference is going to be in November in Baltimore.
Okay. And for the regional trauma meeting, Danielle?
Hello. So we just met this week. This is the ORTAC meeting. For those who don't know what the ORTAC meeting was standing for, this is what it is. So we worked on some more for the NIFTY project, which is just taking the Krabari and doing one more step and adding some different fields to that. We redid the write-up. We realized that admission date is PHI, so that was taken out. Mary Moran and Olivia worked together on a data spreadsheet, so that was sent out. And then I worked on an Excel spreadsheet to know what systems in the hospital or in the state of Ohio who want to participate in the research project. And then just kind of moving forward with the IRB. So that project's ongoing. The validation project 2.0, Dina Moore wanted to be able to do that presentation today, but she had to do it at AOTR. So she's hoping to do that presentation next meeting. They do have all the data that they needed and it's all been compiled. They're just waiting on the state data, but as we all know, the state's behind just for many reasons. So hopefully once the state data comes in, she can add that to it. And then the only other thing we really talked about was all the issues going on with ESO, with the acquisition and the delays of everybody's updates for 2021. COTS had reached out with ESO and ODPS and had a little bit more of a conversation of timelines, and that's why the extension for July 31st was put out. Now there's been some talk to see if OCOT would want to help support, maybe if TQIP could give us the definitions earlier, so that we can get ESO to do it earlier and get the all the updates a little bit earlier for everybody, since we're all going to be behind. And then from that stemmed on, I believe the TRA group is working on regional data fields, that all the regions have the same data fields to help lessen the burden on ESO moving forward. But ESO's timeline is completely off. They thought there was going to be a 6-month transition, and it looks like more of a couple years transition. So I think everybody's behind in that. That's pretty much all that's going on at ORTAC.
Okay, thank you. AOTR, Deanna did send in a report. She said that the board held email communication in April regarding the purchase of joint accounts for the Microsoft Teams account in collaboration with OSTNL, and they did approve that from the members that were in good standing to purchase access. We'll talk a little bit more about the Microsoft Teams account here shortly. They also held email communication regarding resignation of the current AOTR education chair. The offer of the education committee to work as the remaining committee to complete the rest of the duties that would have been performed by the education chair for the remainder of 2021 was accepted by the board. And lastly, at this week's meeting, education will be provided from 3 trauma centers in Ohio that have participated in the new ACS virtual visit, and it will be focused on the trauma registrar's perspective and include tips and insight on their new process. All right, moving forward to our subcommittee reports. Carly with education.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. All right, so this is our next educational kind of rollout. We're going to be utilizing, these are tentative dates, but our next one will be at our every other month education session. So July 2nd, we're going to be discussing electronic trauma documentation. So these are kind of the way we're breaking out each session. So feel free to attend all or ones that you have more interest in. We are also asking for volunteers. We have leads that will be presenting each of these, but if you have any information you want to share or any tidbits, takeaways, things that worked well for your center or things you want to know about any of these topics, please, please, please email me so we can make these as useful for everybody as possible. And then whenever the book comes out, we'll also be doing chapter discussions as well, included within our session breakouts.
Right. Thank you, Carly. Level 3 group, Diane.
Level 3 group met just prior to this meeting. Olivia Howe was very gracious in helping us look at the nifty criteria that we have set up for level 3s, showing us the spreadsheet, worksheet that she's developed, and we're looking to pilot a little bit of that. We have 5 people who are going to pilot it to see how effective it is, if it's going to capture data accurately or if there's elements missing. So we got that going. We discussed solid organ injury and who's grading those, if it's a radiologist or a trauma surgeon. We identified in TQIP, some of us are having trouble getting a chart accepted if it's got blood products in it. For some reason, it wants to kick it out. So that is something that we're all working on with TQIP. And I think that's about it. We had a lot of little things going on today, so.
We did. Okay, cool. I see that Anne is on. Hi, Anne.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Did you have an update for PI? And we did talk about the OT clip a little bit and kind of gave the little subcommittee report. So if there's anything you wanted to throw in on there, you can throw it in here as well.
Okay, great. So for PI, we met April 2nd after a hiatus. And kind of just talked about the future direction, considering the limited support staff. Eric is still kind of in the process of hiring and filling the vacancies. So our focus is going to be working on the 2020 annual report, including a section on COVID. We're going to continue with the GSW data, looking to expand the section on pediatrics. There was also discussion about starting a dashboard of metrics and measuring them at predetermined intervals. And I shared what Lynn Haas had developed many moons ago, and maybe tweaking that a little bit. So that's up for future discussion. And then our next meeting is today after this meeting. As far as OTQIP, the VAP subcommittee, we developed a Gantt chart with tasks and responsibilities just to kind of keep everybody on task and moving it along. AKI has developed algorithms, worksheets, so that's moving along nicely. The hip fracture group combined the best practices for orthopalliative care, pain, geriatrics, and again, a lot of nice work with that group. The COVID group was working on an abstract, and then kind of new to the discussion, reached out to the ACS about the possibility of developing a pediatric collaborative for the state, and they must have changed the requirement, but we only need a minimum of 3 pediatric centers to form a pediatric collaborative. I also asked about the possibility of including centers from neighboring states, and that is certainly a possibility. So more to come on that. I will also, if those of you that don't know, June 30th is my last day. I am retiring. So I have reached out to Leanne Worster from Nationwide Children's. She has agreed to take over OTQIP and the state PI work group. And that was one of the kind of, I don't know, stipulations or one of our areas of concerns with the Ohio TQIP collaborative is, but there's no PEDS. So that's one of the reasons I reached out to ACS is to see what's the possibility of including a pediatric collaborative. So I think she's real excited about pursuing that. So hopefully the pediatric centers in Ohio will jump on the bandwagon and get this moving. I know Leanne is real excited about starting that. So more to come, and I want to miss you guys. This is a great group, and I have learned so much from you guys. I was a new trauma program manager many moons ago, and this is just a great group. What can I say?
Well, Anne, I wanted to thank you for everything that you've done for OSTNL, for the PI work group, for O2Equip. I mean, you've pushed it forward for I don't know how long with all the projects you've had, and we're going to miss your presence with our group significantly. I mean, there's big shoes to fill. So I know Leanne will get the job done, but we will miss you absolutely. And feel free to jump on whenever you feel like just, be a nosy.
I know the password to the website.
Yeah, so you can.
I think I'll sneak on and kind of see what you guys are up to.
Yeah, you can be our honorary OSTNL member for life, trauma for life.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Websites, Andrea? And I don't know if you want to throw anything about Microsoft Teams. I had that separate, but we can talk about that now too.
Yeah, I don't really have any new updates on the website. So if you want to go ahead and discuss the Microsoft Teams stuff we've been talking about with Jason, go right ahead.
All right, so we are moving forward finally with the Microsoft Teams platform. And that'll tie in a little bit as well with what we talk about with future meetings. Jason is in process of going to start setting up a 30-day trial for us so we can start getting things loaded, getting information in. So how the breakdown will look, there will be 4 different main emails that will be OSTNL designated emails. So once we get everything set up, instead of getting an email from myself or from Jenny or from other people that have chair seats on the board, it'll be just one email that comes out that kind of is designated by category. So there'll be a president@ostnl.com email. So you'll receive that, all of the OSTNL information that comes from the president or the president-elect or even the past president will all use that same email. So you'll just get email communication from that specific email. Then there will be an education@ostnl.com. So anything education-wise, you'll get information from that email. And there'll also be a secretary and treasurer email as well. So if there's communication sent out from there, ideally we'll try and get the communication sent out from those emails. So you guys kind of, as positions change, you're not trying to figure out, okay, who's sending this now? Who is this person? Why are they sending me this information? You know, it's officially coming from a board member. The other piece will be, of course, utilizing Microsoft Teams. So once we get it up and running and we're comfortable with the platform, we will be switching the meeting invite. So it'll still be Teams, but it just won't be coming from my work email. It'll be coming from the OSTNL team. So I want to make sure that it'll be a smooth transition and we have all the bells and whistles we need before we do that. So it'll probably be another meeting or so before that happens, but that we're actively working on that. AOTR is joining in with us, so they will have a platform as well. We'll kind of be the overarching umbrella for the project, and then we'll just invoice them out separately for their portion, but they'll be having access to Teams and have emails and all that, and we're just splitting the cost. I think that's it. Andrea, is there anything that I'm forgetting on that?
I don't think so. I know Jason did kind of give me the password to get in and start looking around at the platform a little bit with the Office products, but other than that, that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. There is a new feature in Microsoft Teams, which is the webinar feature. I haven't used it at all yet, but it sounds like to utilize that, it's about a $20 per month increase. So at this point, we're not going to utilize that feature, but maybe moving forward, depending on what we're doing, especially with the education committee, that may be something that comes up again. But since it's such a new feature, I think at our facility, we have access to it. So I'll try and play around with it and see if it's something worth OSTNL actually adding on to the package or not. All right, we will move right along. So just a new business. President-elect election results. So first off, congratulations to Melody Campbell. She did win the president-elect election with, I believe, 41% of the vote. So she is our new president-elect. Congratulations to Melody.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're so excited to bring you on. And I know Melody's currently member at large, so that position will be currently vacant. So I think that is something that we'll talk about here soon, because I know Lynn has mentioned in the past about transitioning that seat, and this kind of actually may make it a very smooth transition to changing the member at large seat to a PI coordinator type of seat. Because we do want to incorporate our PI coordinators into OSTNL and just figuring out what that looks like. So that is something that we can talk about even today or at the next meeting. I wanted to get just some general feedback on what people thought about the election buddy. We got pretty good participation. It wasn't all of the voting members. So I know because it's a third-party site, my biggest concern was that people weren't getting the links. And there were some people that did not get the links, and I was able to send them their link directly. It does have the capability that I can send that individual personalized link to individual centers if for some reason you're not getting the email. So I just wanted to take a quick second and get any feedback on that, if what people thought about it.
I thought it was great, Alex. I thought it was very easy, it was good. I had no problems with it.
Awesome.
I agree. It was easy to use.
Great. So we'll continue to use that platform for our bigger votes. Of course, not the smaller things that we do, but I think it's something that I felt like it was easy to use on my end as well, just loading everything in. It was very clean. You could see exactly what what the goal was, and it made it really nice, especially now with us being so spread out across the state and not always being in person. All of our candidates were awesome candidates. I feel like everyone would have filled the role completely, and I would love for any of our other candidates to jump in and help out with any of the other projects that we're working on, because I felt like we really had some really strong candidates, and I welcome you guys to continue to participate with any of the other things that we have going on. I'd love to see you guys involved in the things that we're doing. So ENA TCRN collaboration, I wanted to put this out to the group. At the last state ENA meeting, there was conversation about trying to, the ENA state group wants to give more support across the state to encourage emergency nurses to get certified. And one of the areas they were discussing were the different types of certifications, and TCRN, lose my voice. CEN, of course, is the main emergency nursing certification, and then there's also a pediatric version. But now with TCRN, that did come up in conversation about a lot of people showing interest in the TCRN certification, and ENA wanted to help support that initiative and provide some level of either funding or even funding a virtual or in-person review course. So I do chair TNCC, so I do sit in on those meetings. So I volunteered us to potentially collaborate, especially with the trauma certification. And I told them that I would bring it to our group to get your guys' thoughts on if we could collaborate with ENA and do this together, as far as either just putting in to host a course, a review course, and going through some of the other sites, or whether it's, paying for or reimbursing for certifications if someone puts in the application. It's totally wide open on what we could do. It was just really an idea that has just now started to evolve. But I think it would be really neat for us to partner with another organization. The ENA really liked the idea because they said, wow, we've never really partnered with another state organization either. So it might be really neat for us to come together on this. So just opening it up for thoughts and discussion on what people think about that, or what we could do, even ideas.
I think it's a great idea, Alex, and I love the idea of possibly hosting some type of a review course and making it more accessible to our hospitals.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I will take it back to ENA that we are interested, and then I don't know if it'll be just a separate meeting, or I'll have the ENA president come to one of our meetings, or how we'll do that. But I'll definitely get that out to you guys on what the actual ask is, and if it's just supporting, if it's advertising, if it's financial, or what. But I think it would be really neat for us to try and push that certification piece, especially since it's pushing for trauma. I did want to throw in there as well, since we're talking about ENA, there is the notification went out, I think like 2 weeks ago. They are starting TNCC revisions, and they are requesting for people to be contributors. So that's going to be the web portion, the actual book. There is an application you have to fill out, and then there is a you have to do like a excerpt of your work. So if you're applying to write for the one of the book chapters, you have to write like a 250 word snippet about shock, and have to have citations and all of that so they can see how well you write. But if you are interested in being in on that new edition, definitely get into ENA and apply for that. And if anyone wants that link, I can look through my emails and send that out if you would like to be involved, since they are working on that new edition. And we know how new editions sometimes go if the right people aren't at the table. So if you're interested, just let me know. The COVID survey, I already talked about it with the OT quip, but again, if you haven't filled out the survey, contact me directly or contact Mary Moran or contact your regional representative. We want to get as many survey results as possible. So really just trying to push and plug for that information so we can have a complete project. And then hopefully we can do a poster and even publish our findings. We talked about the Microsoft Teams update as well, so we'll move past that. The bylaws amendments. So if you did vote on the election buddy, which this did pass with the with 100%. There was the regular bylaws, but I did add a section about changing the rotation for the past president and president-elect. Just because there was suggestion that when you sit for this presidential seat, it's the way it's set up right now, it's a 6-year commitment. And we did talk about this briefly at the last meeting, but you have your 2 years as president-elect, 2 years as president, 2 years as past president. So the thought is to trim that down a little bit, have the president-elect seat and the past president rotate. So there's always someone in that seat, but it's essentially almost a shared board seat. So for instance, if we start in 2022, I would be president, Melody would take on as president-elect, and then Jenny would drop off as past president. So you would only have 1 year after your presidency that you would operate as past president. And then that president-elect will come in and take over for that second year. It would work out nicely because that first year you would have your past president to mentor the current president through their first year. And then after that first year, the president-elect is now on, and the current president can mentor the president-elect before they go into their rotation. So that was presented on the election buddy, and it did pass with 100%. But just with our bylaws, it does need to be kind of voted on within the meeting and mentioned before. So I did want to make a motion to approve that concept officially into our bylaws, and that is the rotation of having a 1-year role for president-elect and past president, and rotating it through that way versus our current process, which I know I did not word that really great, but so I don't know if anyone has any feedback or if anyone wants to second, so we can officially put it into the bylaws.
I will second that, Alex, and I'll start the discussion. I think it's a great idea. I think it works well.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Does anyone else have anything? All right, thanks. So really quick, Respond Trauma Registry. I do not know much of anything about this product. All I know is that this is a trauma registry product similar to our CDM, trauma-based DI software. I'm not sure how new it is, but apparently AOTR is talking with their vendors, and they are setting up a meeting to get more information through AOTR. So they contacted me to see, of course, if OSTNL would like to hear from the vendors as well. I wanted to just throw this on the agenda to see what the pulse was of the group. If you guys were interested in hearing, there's not any obligation, but my thought was if AOTR is listening to the registry platform, then it would be helpful for the corresponding TPMs to also be in the loop and have the chance to ask questions. Again, I don't know really anything about the product. I just know that
they're planning on talking to the vendors. So I guess they won't have any time until the August meeting. So it would be probably a 30-minute presentation at the very beginning of our August meeting, about 10 a.m. So just opening up for thoughts, do we want to hear this out?
Hey, Alex, are you sharing your screen, or we're not seeing anything?
Uh-oh. Sorry.
Maybe you could do that, change it.
Yes. Let me do that right now. Here we go. I've just been clicking away. All right. So any thoughts on that? I think I saw in the chat, a couple people are okay with having them.
Hey, Alex, this is Sandy. We use the Respond video system, and I've actually seen the demo. I think people would be pretty impressed if they saw it, and it didn't take very long at all. But we use the video recording system from them and the arrivals module. So does Rainbow. We've been using it for a long time. It's certainly worth, I think, looking at if you are unhappy with ESO.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I believe that there are a couple centers that might be looking at transitioning to this registry as well. So the extra information is always a good thing.
This is Lenny Fairview. I don't know a lot about this product. Is this replacing the trauma registry from ESO, or is this like an adjunct to it?
I think this is totally separate. That's the vibe that I've gotten from just a little bit of communication I've had. I think this product has been around longer than the ESO transition. And anybody else can feel free to jump in on that.
It is a replacement. It is a standalone registry product.
Is that what you guys are using, Sandy, at UH?
No, we use CDM, but we use the Respond video system. That's how we record our activations, our video reviews. And it has many things built in that you can, when the surgeons tap they badge tap when they go in the room, and it records their arrival time. So it has a lot of functionality, but they've developed a standalone registry that you don't have to use the video system. You don't have to use it's a standalone.
That sounds awesome, because we had tried using the badge system. It doesn't work for us correctly. If the system is down for a period of time, then you have to relog back in. So I'm definitely eager to learn more about this Respond trauma registry. Thank you.
All right, so I will go ahead and get in touch with AOTR, and we'll probably do just a group presentation. It should be, the way the timing is looking, it's going to be at 10 a.m. So we'll get it out of the way at the beginning of our meeting versus the end, and have a presentation from that group. Next, roster updates. I am going to send out the roster. I feel like it's pretty complete now. I've been working on it since I've taken over as president, just to get a living, breathing list of everyone that's on. And I've showed this the last meeting. I'm going to send it out because I know it's really small and it's hard to see. But is there anyone that has any changes since our last meeting that I need to update? Even if it's not your center personally, if you know about centers that have changed. I know there was a change at Genesis, and I know there was a change at Lima. But if anyone has anything, just so we can make sure that we're not I just don't want to miss anyone that needs us as a resource and needs our contacts, and we're not reaching out to them. So trying to keep this as updated as possible. So I don't know, does anyone have any changes that they know of?
The other piece on this is the TMDs. I got a good amount of TMDs, but not all. And then also with our incorporation of our PI coordinators, I wanted to start getting a complete list of PI coordinators as well. So when I send this out, if you guys could take a look at it and fill in whatever blanks you may have. If you don't have a PI coordinator, you can just send me that back as well and just say no, so I can just NA your slot. But as we move forward, I want to add them to our list, and I think we can also discuss how we want to incorporate the PI coordinators. I want to make good use of their time. So I don't know if this will look like a separate meeting for PI coordinators, or we'll just allocate part of our meeting to talk specifically about PI subjects. Since we have time, we can discuss that a little bit now as well, but I will send this out, and if you guys can just look through it, make any changes that you might have and send them back to me, that would be great. Does anyone have any questions on this spreadsheet, or as far as PI, any thoughts on how we want to start incorporating our PI coordinators or quality coordinators? Because some of us do both. So I don't want to take away from the OSTNL meeting because we already kind of run on a tight schedule, but I also want to have time to designate specifically the PI. So one thought is, do we tag it on to even our education meeting and have a separate meeting on a whole separate month? But then that does mean that there's something happening every month with our groups. So any thoughts or ideas, I'm more than open to.
Alex, this is Lynn, and I know I don't know if everybody has a PI coordinator yet, but I know that it is going to be a requirement coming up in the next book. So I anticipate that you're going to probably see more in the next year or two. So I don't know if that makes, if we should wait till a little bit more, like, 6 months and reevaluate. I'm just throwing this out to see when actually they start coming on board, or if maybe there are enough in there already to start thinking. But I almost think you need to ask the PI coordinators too, and then facilitate how you would, I think as a board, we would have to help them, kind of how to organize it a little bit, not just leave them out dangling by themselves.
Right.
But I hate to be so autocratic that you say you have to do it this way, because we say that, and that's not what we want to do either. But we really want to help them to move forward and to use everybody else's knowledge, and then see where they could work in their own place, but then also expand that knowledge to a state level, because they're going to have to learn that role within their hospital too. So I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but like I said, I don't know how many of that list is going to, start filling up in the next 6 months of PI coordinators.
I agree.
Would anybody be willing to share what their current PI person does, like on a day-to-day basis, just to get an idea for those who don't have one and are anticipating getting one?
Hey, on that note, I don't know if any of you guys attended the webinar TCAA did. I think it was last week, about bringing on a new PI coordinator and creating that role. I guess TCAA created some competencies. So that's something that I could probably send out if you guys don't have access to it, since a lot of us will probably be adding that role.
I would love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe do we start with, I'll send this document out. Everyone that has a PI coordinator, get me their information, and maybe we set up a separate meeting just to talk about future plans, so we can, it'll go out to all the program managers, but also the PI coordinators, and just saying, hey, this is what we want to do. Let's set up a separate meeting just to discuss the PI part. And when do we want to start this? Do we want to start it in 22? The board seat, we could talk about that. just kind of what this looks like, because I agree with Lynn, you know, some people, it's going to be, some people are working on getting coordinators now, some it's going to be until, you know, their center is going to make them wait until the last possible minute before they allow them to get one. But I also think that there's probably a lot of TPMs that are currently even doing PI that might benefit from attending the meetings as well, not just PI coordinators. So do we want to just kind of do a separate meeting, like get the information, get everyone's contact info first, and then do a separate meeting so we can make sure the PI coordinators are present before we make any concrete decisions?
Alex, I think that's a great idea. I will jump in and help you facilitate that, and
Okay.
maybe getting everybody together just on a separate Zoom and finding some info and then pulling that back to the group of what we have. But I think we have to update the list first and then do that, but I'll
Okay.
jump in and help you.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right, we'll do that. So I will send this list out after the meeting, and then I mean, you guys can feel free to email me now if you want. You don't have to wait for the list. If you already have updates you want to send, but we'll kind of, I wish this could be a shared list, but it just won't operate that way. Every time I try and send it, people can't open it. So, but once we do have a full list, I would like to put this on our website under our members only section. So you guys have, at least can refer to this, and it'll get updated regularly. Okay, the last thing I have on the agenda is future meetings. So this has come up with AOTR and also in the level 3 meeting about future meetings. Now that things are starting, the restrictions are starting to be lessened more and more. In-person meetings are starting back. The state is going to be requiring that the state groups meet in person, starting, I believe, in August or at least midsummer. I know AOTR is asking what OSTNL is doing as far as planning for future meetings. My thoughts on it overall is I feel like, I know there was always hesitancy with doing virtual just because of participation. Technically, we are a state group, but we aren't under, you know, the MFATS regulations or the state regulations. So the state was helping us by facilitating room meeting space and being a support, but because we are not officially a state group under them, they aren't required to give us space like they are required to give trauma committee space. They're required to give PI subcommittee space. They aren't required to give us space. So even before COVID, we were already kind of getting the nudge that they may not be able to accommodate us for in-person meetings anymore. So if some of you may recall, we were already starting to think about, well, where are we going to go for these in-person meetings? So COVID just kind of made the decision for us, and we all went virtual. So I think the thought is, how do we want to move forward once we in-person meetings start again? I will say that the ENA state group, they meet bi-monthly as well. But they have 2 meetings a year that they meet in person, and then the rest of their meetings are all virtual. We do have that option again, since we're not officially 100% under the state regulations. We can do a little bit more. We're a lot more flexible than some of the actual state meetings are. So we can have virtual options. We could have once or twice a year we meet in person. One of the other things that the ENA group does is they will switch sites. So one meeting might be up in Akron, the next meeting may be down in Cincinnati. That may help with people that can't get to meetings, that maybe they can at least attend one near their facility. Or we can continue just looking for space in Columbus. I know we were starting to look for space and there were some challenges. So since it's really, this is the last thing we have on here before roundtable, I wanted to open this up to the group to discuss. One, do we want to do a hybrid? Do we want to continue to do virtual meetings? I think it's really beneficial. Our participation has been significantly higher than it was with in-person meetings with virtual for obvious reasons. So I think if we can do a hybrid, if we want to meet in person, I guess the first question is, do we want to meet in person ever again? Yes or no? And if we do, then we can go down that pathway. If we want to stay virtual completely, then that makes it easy. But if we do want to do some in person, then what does that look like? So I'll open it up to the group.
Alex, I'm going to jump in first. As usual, I'm the quiet one, but laughing. You know, we did years ago, we rotated around places, and it sounds nice in theory, but what's hard about it is if you have it in Cincinnati, the Cleveland people have a 4-hour drive, which means they have to come in the night before or leave at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they have a hotel room and stuff. And it's vice versa from Cincinnati to Cleveland. The idea with Columbus was that everybody could make it in one day without having to stay overnight and pay the cost of a hotel. So just to think that in back of just historically, that's why it went to the middle of the state area of Columbus. And I also, my personal opinion is I think we have had great response in having people here and being on the, you know, the Zoom or whatever platform we use, and getting people who have never been before, couldn't afford it, their hospital would not support them coming in. So I think we would love to continue to have this more in a hybrid type thing. I do think there's some benefit of meeting at least once a year face to face. There is some benefit of that, of connection, especially with people who are newer and who need to really kind of get that connection to people that's, you know, I've already connected a lot of people for 30 years. It's not that maybe as much needed, but I think some of the younger people and newer people in the role, it would be of great benefit. The other question I have is, if we do an in-person, could you still have a Zoom up there where people could then link in somewhere that if they couldn't come that time and they wanted to, could you have the Brady Bunch up there and some kind of a thing so people could listen? But that's my 2 cents. But I think this has been very positive so far, and we've invested in a lot of electronic, a lot of things from OSTNL, and I think it's working well this way.
Yeah, Lynn, this is Vic. I agree with everything you're saying. And one thing I'm just sitting here brainstorming about is, if you do want to, I agree too, it would be nice to have a get-together meeting once, maybe twice a year. Maybe there's a way to incorporate the meeting date also with some of your educational programs, because that always adds a lot to, you know, the participation. If you could, you know, maybe meld those together on the days you get together and have the meeting, and then follow it up with some educational component that would get people to come to that area. I think in this day of virtual visits, people are so busy at their trauma centers, it's easy for them to be at all kinds of meetings and then just walk in their office and pop onto the meeting. And I think it has been beneficial in engaging a lot of new people, but I like the idea of, you know, at least maybe 1 or 2 meetings getting together at some place. Again, that's always the problematic area, is the place, trying to find the place. So just my thoughts.
I agree with both of you. I think that's the direction I was thinking. And maybe we can decide, is it once a year or is it twice a year? And as far as when we do in person, I think it would depend on the place as far as doing the hybrid. Can we still have like the Zoom or Teams link? I think we can. I know just from my experience so far, as people have started to do like mixed meetings, it's hard for the people on the virtual platforms to hear the people in the room. But my thought with that is that we could potentially just talk to some IT people, especially if the room that we're in doesn't have the capability. Do we just purchase some type of speaker equipment or something that when we have in-person meetings, we have the equipment that can easily be used, and so everyone can hear it and it's seamless. We can, you know, of course, get pricing and move forward on that, but I think that would be an easy fix, and we have the funds to purchase some type of equipment that can just get passed around from, you know, president to president and utilize as we move forward. But
you know, speaking of that, Alex, that might be a problem too, and I might backtrack on that. As you said, you can have that equipment, but you know, even if you go to those virtual site reviews and we've done some where people, like 3 people are at a table and they're trying to, hand it back and forth. You just don't hear. It's very hard. You muffle, you hear different things. That's why the college always wants everybody in separate rooms, et cetera. So it might be a little difficult having that kind of both systems at one time alive in a.
Yeah, and I can look into it and see, because I'm sure since this is probably a problem that multiple people are having, I can talk to some of our IT teams and see if there's any solutions out there. Because I know one of our rooms, one of our conference rooms has a central speaker, so you can hear people clearly, but you have to use that room. You can't use just your regular room. So,
but it might not be as much of an issue if people are not traveling 6 times a year, if they're only traveling 1 to 2 for cost.
Yeah, if we just have one meeting a year that's in person and there's not a virtual option. All right. Any other thoughts, opinions? I'll say I would throw anything out there, anything that you think idea wise.
I would not have the in-person during the winter time.
Yeah, I agree. I'm almost thinking I would say, what's our most attended meeting? It would be either this meeting usually is pretty low because of vacation. October, I feel like either August or October. August sometimes runs into vacation as well, and October sometimes runs into conferences. But I feel like October is probably our most attended. If anyone else has any.
Yeah, I would do it for October because August, a lot of people are going back to school too, starting.
Yeah.
Agree.
I'm gonna send a poll and see if this works for people that have access to the chat about meeting once a year or twice a year.
Maybe even like, I mean, I like the, even twice a year is fine, like an April, October type of thing, because April, other than beginning of the month for like spring breaks and stuff, but even if it's like the end of the month, but at least it's twice a year, still keep the Zoom meetings. I'm fortunate to have a brother who lives in Columbus, so even if we did decide Columbus, I'd be okay with that.
And I agree with what Ann said. I think in theory, this changing location sounds good and it's doable, but then you're probably only going to get participation from the people in that area. And then it makes it hard for the board that typically would be expected to attend every meeting, would be driving all across the state. So I put a real quick survey out here, see if you guys can see it in the chat. Go ahead and respond just so I can get a quick pulse on what people are thinking.
Alex, I'm pretty impressed how tech savvy you are.
I play around with stuff. I just click things until I figure it out. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see the votes coming in. We've got 21 people responding so far. So if you can't see the votes yet, I don't think you can see the results until either everyone votes or.
We can see it.
Oh, you can? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah, to see kind of how everyone's. looks like I don't see any more responses coming in, so. All right, so it looks like, I guess I could have put an other option if people had other suggestions that aren't on here. But it looks like a lot of people are good with 2. Want to do at least 2 per year. So any other thoughts on that? And I don't know if we necessarily need to vote. We can vote on it today if we want, do an official vote. If anyone wants to make a motion, or we can kind of table it to the August meeting if people want to chew on it a little bit. We can plan to do August still virtual, and then officially decide in August, or if you guys like to decide now, and we can plan for October, because of course with in-person, goes back to what Vic says, we have to find a place. So I know we tried. The other problem is trying to incorporate it with AOTR. It's just so many people. I think COTS was our #1 spot to try and have the meeting, which I think could accommodate OSTNL fine, but it wouldn't. Ideally, if we could have a spot for AOTR too, that would work, since people ride share and so on. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So if we do decide to try and make October a in-person meeting, we want to start thinking about where. And I can talk to Deanna from AOTR and kind of see what their thoughts are too.
Yeah,
We've talked briefly.
Should we ask if they want to do April and October and then feel them out first and then decide?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Then we can figure out what type of a place we need.
It's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, I will talk to them.
You know, if we have to pay for a little bit of the room or something, a rent thing, we do have money, and that
Yeah.
might be something.
Agreed. Okay. All right. So what I'll do is, since this is something that I'll probably send out communication after I talk to Dina and get AOTR's kind of feedback. And if it's something that I can send out before the next meeting that we can get a better idea on, I'll do that. But if not, then we can officially vote in August on what we're wanting to do. But if it's something I could send out before, just to get a pulse check on what everyone's thoughts are and what we're good with, I'll send that out to the group. Anything else on the meetings? Okay. All right, so open discussion before we close. Does anybody have anything that they want to throw out there? Anything they want to announce? Anything they want to add to any of the topics that were discussed?
I feel really quick. Knott's is having their annual symposium on November 9th. It'll be the same platform, and it'll be free again. It'll be a virtual event. We decided to do virtual this year and go back into in-person next year. So the brochure's almost finished. So once I have it, I'll send it to you guys to distribute to everybody.
Awesome.
Alex, this is Lynn. There was a reviewer meeting for the ACS last night, and I just kind of wanted to give a couple of big highlights, couple major things that they talked about. One thing he did say, and actually Melanie Neal was on this, and Molly, that, you know, 4 points. First of all, the OneNote is not mandatory. It's optional, but it's a great option, but it is not mandatory, and they're going to have an email coming out to that effect. I mean, it's a great option, don't say me wrong, and I'm going to be using it, but it's not like everybody has to do that or you're going to fail. So it's an option. The chart review, they said the only thing they kept talking over and over, and many site reviewers said this, is that it has to be something where you can go and tab to the specific area. So if you PDF like the whole chart and it's 500 pages, they don't want to be zooming through 500 pages. You either have to have a PDF tab or some system where they can get to progress notes or whatever you use. So that was your kind of, if you use OneNote, you can do it, or if you do some other into the other way, but you have to get to the certain area easily is what they said. And then they said, once again, they were talking about, they're going to reiterate that you have to have people in separate rooms. So you have an interview and you have 3 people there. You can't hear people. They really want people in separate rooms, specifically like for dinners. And then the last thing I talked about was actually the Jenny type thing, was the Mac issue, a big topic on this, being able to access your system. Because remember how we had Jenny had talked last time, they couldn't get into the Mac and it was all this problem beforehand, and that kind of came up. And I guess they have a work around it if there is a Mac, but what you need to do is somehow set up at your pre-review meeting. You don't even have to have the patient in there or something, but you have to have a system like a dummy info where they can at least try to open up something. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep. No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Those are kind of the 4 big takeaways that they kind of were talking about that, and actually I think Molly will hear about this, but that was just kind of the big gist of the things last night.
Okay, the big question, Lynn, when is the gray book coming out?
They didn't talk about it last night. They did not say. I think it's close, but they didn't talk about it at all, and I don't have a time. It's soon. And actually, Todd Maxon said something. I was with him once, and he said a totally different requirement than what I had heard on the registry team. And I'm like, wait a second. So I'm anxious to actually see it, because it was like, I had heard one thing and then he kind of cited, I don't know if he just misspoke or if this is truly going to be a new change, but we'll have to see. That requirement on the registries we'll have to see what actually it is. So, on how many for what, the definition is. I don't know. They didn't talk in.
Yeah. The last rumor I heard was November, which would almost make sense if they're going to tie it in with TQIP.
And I heard it was back in the legal they're looking at, the legal has to go through it and do the formatting and do all that stuff, et cetera. So once again, I think it's at the final go over.
Yeah.
Kaylin, did they say anything about going back to in person, or it's still going to stay virtual?
They talked a little bit about it. This is more that really kind of, they only had an hour, and believe me, after an hour, they had to cut people off. But they did not say anything about that. There was something in the chat conversation with one person saying that re-verifications they thought this is just an opinion and nobody commented on it. That was going good. The question is if for initial things or if that would stay virtual. Now I know they've had a focus review and it went very well with virtual. So they said that was going well. So they didn't say anything about changing it. That's all I can say. The nice thing is they're talking, because there's a lot of quality groups, like there's the children's surgical verification, there's oncology, there's bariatrics, et cetera. There was even a suggestion that should there be a third-party platform, like even developed for all of the quality programs, so that you would then not use OneNote, but you would use something that would be a third party. But once again, this is high-level suggestions going to Melanie and to the group. So that doesn't mean it's going to get done. It's just being thrown out.
Right.
And that would make sense. I think some people still have a little hesitancy on sending out, I'm having patient information and my legal doesn't want me to post this here. So that was the thing. Can they develop the whole college, since this is going to be something all these different areas are using the same thing? But do a third party. But once again, then why would they do it if they're not going to continue virtual in the long run? Because that would be costly. So I don't know if they know the answer to that, Bernie.
Thank you.
I have 2 more things, Alex. Can I have questions for a second?
Yep.
I just wanted to let you guys know, people here, maybe you're not PEDS oriented or whatever, but I did want to say, there is something in the Ohio State Medical Association that I just wanted to let people know. There is a thing now, House Bill 248, which is going to stop, it's anti-vaccine legislation. And I don't want to bring that up politically, but what happens is when they don't, they say you can't mandate vaccine information and mandate that. But that means going to schools and everything, they would have, the kids would not have to have polio. They wouldn't have to have the tetanus. That's going to be for all vaccines. So for pediatrics, that's huge for us, that the kids will not you wouldn't have to have all the things that we don't want to see. We don't want to see polio. We don't want to see small, any of the rubella, any of those type of things. But this legislation would wipe out all vaccine type of things for all the mandates. So if you would like to support stopping that legislation, you just Google Ohio State Medical Association. It comes up to a front page. And basically they have you put your phone number, your address in there, and it automatically sends something to the legislators that you would not want to support that. So it's just an FYI. Once again, I didn't mean to talk about the vaccines because it's not that point. The point is that it really extends to all the other pediatric things that happen, which are really important for kids.
Oh, that's good information. Thank you.
And once again, you just have to put your name and address in there. It automatically sends a standard form, so you don't have to write anything. It says from my zip code, it goes to your legislator. It's a standard form, and I think the AAP has an Association of Pediatrics, but then Ohio State Medical Association. It's on their front page. You don't have to join anything. You don't have to log in or anything. It's just on the front. You just join that. If you Google it, you'll find it.
Thanks, Lynn.
And I have one other question. This is dumb. And you would think, how many people, we still have those damn pagers, are other people using different systems that we are so far behind? Because I know people use cell phones and all these things to do this, but I have people who are like my respiratory therapists and other people who rotate around, and it's very hard. And I'm struggling how to get rid of pagers. Does anybody have any great platforms and ideas?
Well, I know, so we use pagers still as well, but then we also have where they can send the pagers to the cell phones for the people that want that, so they can do both. But one of the hospitals in our system, or a couple of them, they use a platform called Pulsera to notify for trauma activations. And we're actually starting to look and see kind of all the bells and whistles and features. I know we use it at our institution for stroke alerts. I think there's a challenge with getting the physicians on board with doing, just because they have to be logged into the app, and just a couple different pieces that I think is just a learning curve. And then there's also a platform called Twiage. It's with TWIAGE. And I think they have capability as well. I listened to one of their demos, and I think we did a demo for them for OSTNL a while back. We had them present, but they do a notification system very similar to Pulsera. So those are the two apps that I know of.
And everybody can go on these things. So it's like, it's not so much, because we do right now, all our docs send things to their cell phones. That's fine. But it's the people the ancillary people, like, the respiratory therapist and the other people that, rotate around, that hand off that darn pager. So
yeah, from my understanding, they just have to log into the app. So whatever device they're logged into the app, yeah, either a computer or a smartphone, that's all they have to do.
I see Carly said at MatchMD, so I'll look at that. But I kept thinking, are we so far behind in this world of technology? People look at us and say, you still got pagers? You've got to be kidding me, type thing. So
Lynn, we're the same way, and we have dead spots in our hospital, and half the time pages don't go through. And yeah, we keep putting in these safety events in our MIDAS safety program, and it's a problem.
Okay, thank you. That's all. I'm done now.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else have anything, roundtable, anything about their facility they want to share? Any questions they have for the group? I think there's some more systems being put in the chat, Lynn, and anybody else that's interested in looking at that. All right, so if there's no one else that has anything to add, if anyone can give a motion to close the meeting.
I will move. This is Melody.
Second it.
Lynn second, thank you. All right, well, we will conclude our meeting. Thank you guys for coming on, and I'll send out that information as we move forward, and I'll see you guys in a couple months.
Great meeting, Alex.
Thank you. Bye.